Hey, welcome back to Vortex Garage. Now we're pretty much ending the end of the workday, so I wanted to grab the camera and catch up a little bit on progress we're making on our Triumph Spitfire restoration project. We've had the camera going for a fair bit of the day, so we've got a lot of extra stuff that we can show later on, but that's going to require a fair bit of editing, so I figured it'd be great. Grab the camera, do a quick kind of really simple video. We can kind of catch you up on what we've been doing. Now when we last saw this project, we had done the battery tray and we had removed one of the little caps here on our rocker panel, and we had talked about our plans to remove the rocker panel, the outer rocker inner sill, and work our way in with the support and the floor pan. Well, as you can see, we've made some pretty substantial progress, and we've pretty much got all of that removed, and we're getting very close to actually starting to rebuild new metal from the floor pan out. So what we're going to do is catch up a little bit on what we've done and some things that we found, and just sort of give you an update here. So where to start? So the removal of the outer rocker went pretty smoothly. We went ahead and drilled everything out, cut it away, and everything looked pretty good. Now when we got through that, we were left with the inner rocker and the inner sill, and that's where we had to make a little bit of some decisions. Now we already had a reproduction inner rocker. They're very inexpensive, and I went ahead and ordered it when I got the new outer rockers. And it was kind of a no-brainer, but ours was in fairly good shape, so we probably could have saved it, but then we would have had to drill out all the spot welds, remove them, and then hammer and dolly all the edges, get everything good. And again, so cheap, we went ahead and ran with it. It was the inner sill was one of the ones that we were really kind of wondering if we wanted to replace or not. And as we looked at it closer, it just had a little bit too much rust damage. So I made the decision to go ahead and order a new reproduction and go ahead and cut that piece out because repairing it would just be more time consuming. Not to mention the time for removal, we were able to really save a lot of time by just committing to replace that part. So that's sort of what we did. We went ahead with that done. We were able to cut it out and then start, once everything was cut out of our way, to sort of work on more spot weld removal and pieces that we want to save. Good example, this piece right here. This is an inner piece which you can see from inside the car, inside the footwell, and it's in really great shape. It's got a little bit of rust damage on the bottom and then a little damage from when we removed it here. So we might have to do a little bit of patching on it, but the real complex areas of it are in really great shape, and it's something we want to keep. So that was another example of kind of getting things out of our way, and then we were able to kind of logically look at how things were put together, drill out spot welds, and remove things kind of with that finesse that you need, even though you're hammering and drilling on metal. So I do have my small other camera here, and let me power this up. Hope that we have battery in it. And really quickly go ahead and show you some things on here as long as we got battery. So here's that piece I was just talking about. As you can see, obviously we have to do some hammer and dolly work. This is the nature of using the panel popper. We had a couple spots where we cut into it a little bit, and there is a little bit of rust damage up here. We've also got a little rust damage here, and this is that outer lip. This lip goes over the inner rocker and is spot welded on. So what we're probably going to do is cut away a lot of this and replace it with new metal. But when you come to spots where you have some of the more complex curves, everything's in really good shape on here. Now, for the most part, this piece back is all covered by the inner sill back here and the outer rocker. So none of this is seen once the car is put together. So obviously we still want to do a nice job with it, and we want to try to make it look factory and make it look really neat and nice. But at the same time, we don't have to worry too much because all of this is covered up. Now this up here is of course visible inside the car from the inner footwell. And then all this stuff down here is sandwiched in with the floor pan along here and then your outer rocker here. So this is part of that sandwiching. So we'll clean this up with a hammer and dolly. We'll prep this nicely, and then we're going to remove all traces of any surface rust in here. And then we're going to coat this with a really nice protective finish so that this can live on for many years protected once we put everything back together. Now back here, things got a little interesting. So you can see there's still some floor sections in here that we have to remove. I don't know if I'd said this yet on the video, but we're not ready to put the floor in just yet. We've got a little bit of cleanup work and prep work before we can start getting things welded back in. Well, this is definitely one of those areas. So here we've got some floor that we still need to remove. And one of the reasons it's still in here, well, we've got our inner rocker, which ends somewhere around here. And then we've got our inner sill. Well, the inner sill is still spot welded in here. So we've got to go ahead and drill out those spot welds and get this piece fully removed. But one of the reasons we're still doing that and didn't just kind of come in here and cut it out, is as you can see in here, you've got this all sort of sandwiched together with some really good parts that we don't want to damage. Like this piece right here. We don't want to damage that. And we'll have to do a little cleanup here, obviously. Not a big deal. But also this inner piece that goes to the back of our structure is really, really good, nice and sound. Our inner plate here is in good shape. This bracket is in good shape. So all of this stuff we wanted to kind of protect, remove, clean up, as depending on what it was in the sandwich here. So when it comes to getting this out, we're going to have to go drill out all the spot welds inside and carefully remove this. Now with our rear quarter panel, we did go ahead and separate it, but we haven't fully removed that yet. We haven't come up here and done that. That's going to be when we get to this part back here. Obviously, we're going to have to repair and replace a lot of the lower parts. That's where most of these cars get their rust, is on the lower rockers and the lower quarter panels. Same with the back, same story here. And of course, we've got the dent in the side that we've shown in video before. But honestly, the rest of the quarter panel is in really good shape. So we're not really sure exactly what we're going to do with the quarter panel. Replace the entire thing and have to carefully drill out every spot weld, or just do sections and butt weld them back together. Haven't figured that out yet. So we didn't want to come in here and just start hacking away because we don't know exactly what we're going to do. So take your time, try to be careful. So we'll get this floor section removed. This piece, I started removing the inner bracket here and then realized this is actually one big piece. I was kind of hoping to just remove this piece and then clean up the bottom. But as soon as I removed the bottom floor panel, I realized that this has some beads in it, and I'm probably going to want to get behind it and clean it up. So I started to drill out those and then realized, hey, I can do that after I cut the floor out. So this I'm still needing to remove, and then when it's on the bench, we'll clean it up. We'll get everything welded back together and cleaned up on it. This piece is reproduced, but it's about $115. So this is one of those cases where you're like, hey, I'm going to protect that and reuse it. Up here, obviously, I did talk, I think we already covered this, right? We got a little bit of hammer and dolly work to do on here to straighten this out. And all these waves in here, this is just the nature of using the panel popper and popping the spot welds loose after you drill them. But the main part that you see here is in great shape. All the straight pieces will be easy to hammer and dolly. We'll replace some of the metal on the straight piece here. It'll look great when we're done. Up here, you've kind of got the same sandwiching, so we've got a lot of hammer and dolly work to clean this up. This is a complex area here. You don't see it because we've removed a lot of the pieces, but there's another support bracket here. So you end up with about 4 or 5 layers. And on that support bracket, I didn't want to drill all the way through it. I wanted to protect this inner piece a little bit. Plus, you've got this outer piece that connects to here. So again, a lot of hammer and dolly work to clean this up, but all in all, it looks pretty decent. And it was a little bit of wrangling to get the floor out of that section. Also inside, kind of see it here, you've got a little L bracket that holds that piece on. So there's a lot of little components holding this kind of corner together. You can see here we've got to move our support. This is an old support that I made back when we had it on the wood table, and we reused it for the rotisserie. And when I put it on, I wasn't thinking. Well, it bolted together nice and easy because the bolts were accessible on this side, but now it's covering where I need to drill to get this piece of the floor out. So what we're going to do, we'll put the rotisserie level. I'll just support this with a jack enough just so I can loosen these enough. I'm not even going to remove them, just loosen them, and I'll be able to turn this around. Once it's turned around, we'll tighten it back up. I'll be able to come in here, drill these out, remove this little section. In the meantime, I just cut around it to get it out of the way. Here on the floor, I've left about a 3/4 of an inch flange area. I don't know how we're going to reattach the floor just yet. And what I mean by that is, are we going to do a full butt weld here? Because basically the floor comes up to where it starts to turn over on your hump here. Unfortunately, and I kind of wish they did, they don't sell the entire floor piece, which honestly, considering what I'm cutting, I almost would have preferred, though it probably would have been pretty expensive, especially to have it shipped. But anyway, do we butt weld all the way around, or do I go ahead and use that flanging tool, the pneumatic flanger, and flange it, and then drill in and spot weld / butt weld it with a flange, and then put some seam sealer on it or whatever. Obviously, when you flange metal, you end up with this. You end up with an area for rust to develop. With a butt weld, you don't have that, but you have to be a lot more precise. So I left myself the option to sort of figure that out as we go along. What else we got here while I have this camera still going? I think that's kind of the bulk of it. Obviously, here's a lot of the stuff that we've cut away. We've got to sweep up off the floor. And these, if you've noticed, these are just from when we had it on the table. These are additional supports we had. We don't have them hooked up to our rotisserie, so we'll go ahead and remove those. We kind of did that one as we took the floor panel off. Our superstructure. Let me see if I can show you that. So I've added to it, as you can see, I've added an additional support piece on the bottom front, and then 2 small extra door braces. I think you've already seen the cross braces we had, plus we had this upper piece, and then our back one. Well, I went ahead and added some more stuff in just because I wanted a little bit of overkill. I recognize it might be overkill, and that's fine. Cutting away this much material really left a lot of concern that there would be some flex in the body, even with the structure I had. So took some metal I had, went ahead and welded it in, and I got to tell you, it's not going anywhere. This is nice and stable. So I know some people might like to do these on the frame of the car, but then you've got to deal with being able to cut around the frame and stuff like that. Since we have the rotisserie, we can put it up. I think that's great, but I want to make sure I don't have any movement of any of these panels to A, make it more difficult to put the new metal in, or deal with, you know, a warped body when we're done, alignment issues, getting this bolted back up to the frame, that kind of stuff. I think we're in pretty good shape. There is literally no movement on this, even after we cut the floor away. No hint of movement, so I think we're in great shape. Oh yeah, one piece I wanted to show you was this. This is what I'm starting to call our fab table. I pieced this together with some old scrap metal, and I had bought a little additional metal to build it. But I've now turned it into something that we can mount some fabrication tools on. We can use it as a welding table. Plus, it's kind of a nice rolling mobile workbench. So here's some things that we have on it. So first of all, we've got a metal brake mounted up so we can do bends in sheet metal. And this is a piece from Harbor Freight. I think it's a this might be the 30-inch one. It's the larger one that they sell without getting the actual floor-mounted one. And it's nice. It'll support a pretty good amount. Basically, you have this plate on the bottom, which you can put the metal in, and then this piece moves. I just leave these clamps to keep it out of the way. And I've got it bolted to the table so it can be removed. Then I added a shrinker stretcher set, again from Harbor Freight. And these work really well. I've not put them to the test very much. I've only done some test pieces on them, but I have a feeling we're going to be using it if we need to fabricate some small parts. A shrinker stretcher is pretty important for making curves on flanged, rolled pieces. So these are bolted in as well, as you can see. So these are removable, so we can get them out of the way. The handles are removable, so we can kind of get some table space and leave them. And I mounted them on either corner, so that way I've got plenty of room to get a piece in here and work it. So again, I can remove these and go ahead and do some welding on the top there. This is just a 3/16 piece of plate that I had left over. I had a minimum buy I had to do for a structural piece I was building about 1.5 to 2 years ago. And it made a great tabletop. I went ahead and bought these angle pieces to make the legs, and then again used some of that extra plate to make the bottom. I had some expanded metal, and the undersides here, these supports, when we had the 2-post lift installed, the lift came on these pieces, and they were going to take them away, and I said, no, leave them. I want this metal. This is like really nice metal. And originally I was going to cut this up and use it for something, but then I realized as it was a perfect size with this piece of plate that I had. So I just welded the plate to it, welded these to the supports, and then here's the second one. It's on the bottom, and I put this expanded metal over it, which I actually bent in the brake, and keep some stuff on it. And it's a pretty cool tool that I put together. So like I said, this was largely built with some scrap that I wasn't using and a couple add-ons, and it's been a really handy piece to have around the shop. So that's pretty much it for our update. I appreciate you joining us as always to kind of see what we're doing. Like I said, if you want to see pictures as we go along, we do post those on Instagram at Vortex Garage, so we kind of keep some content going up there. I use that more than anything else. So Instagram, if it's not YouTube, Instagram is probably where you're going to find us. Other than that, like I said, we'll try to publish some more videos that have a little more detail on some of the cutting and removal work as we went along here. But as we go, I'll do my best to grab the camera and at least get you updates to kind of share with you how the progress is going. whenever we have time to do it. In the meantime, I got a lot of cleanup to do, so I think I'm going to go ahead and get on that, get cleaned up here, and get this video uploaded. So again, thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for more on our Triumph Spitfire here on Vortex Garage.